Alright, chapter 12, meshes and surfaces. Autodesk AutoCAD 2013 Practical 3D Drafting and Design. In Chapter 4 of the Creating Solid Surfaces for the 2D, we introduced how to create surfaces applying the extrude, other commands of the linear object. The chapter also of all types of surface meshes. This chapter is all about types of surfaces of the meshes. The topic covered of the chapter are identifying types of surfaces, their application, create with the data, procedural surfaces with how to create the edit, NURBS surfaces with how to create edit message, how to create meshes based on 3D faces, analyzing surface curvature. Surface meshes and 3D objects with zero thickness most of the time. When the modeling 3D, we apply solids, which give them a much better precision. Since version 2010, surface mesh is also available to be used to collect the conceptual model of the objects divided into the following categories. Procedural surfaces. These surfaces created with a linear object such as the extrude, revolve, and sweep have been in the chapter 4 for the creating the solid surface from 2D. These surfaces could not maintain the association of original linear objects. We will present them several of the other commands creating procedural surfaces. NURBS or surfaces are non-uniform rational bi-splines. Surfaces based on the splines that are modified with control vertices. These type surfaces mainly apply with the aeronautical, automotive, mold, and any other industrial free-shape objects. Meshes. These objects are also called Teslium meshes, are not really surfaces but allow creating smooth 3D objects. Polyface meshes. These are oldest of AutoCAD 3D objects long before solids are based on 3D faces. So you have your procedural surface, your non-uniform rational B-splines, mesh, and polyface mesh. Procedural surfaces. Procedural surfaces can be created with a linear object with some of the commands presented in Chapter 4, creating solid surfaces with a 2D, with the extrude or sweep at the plane surface of the presented with the Chapter 5, the 3D primitives conversion, and surface network presented with the next section. With the surface can also be obtained with other surfaces applying known operations such as blend, fillet, and offset. Included are also two editing commands of the create solids from surfaces. The surface modeling mode, a variable must have the value of 0 with a value of 1. The non-uniform rational blended spline surfaces are created instead of applying next command. Surface feature and SURF and SURFV. Control surface isoline doesn't see first and second directions can be modified anytime with the properties palette. Access to commands. Most procedural of the non-uniform rational blended surfaces or blended spline surfaces of commands are ribbon, surface panel, with the draw modeling, modifying, surface editing, menu bars, surface creation, surface editing, toolbars. Alright, so there shows your procedural surface creation and the procedural surface editing, non-uniform rational blended surfaces with editation, and then surface creation toolbar, surface editing toolbar. Creating surfaces with linear object by conversion. Chapter 4 of the creating solid surfaces with a 2D were already introduced several commands for the creating procedural surface. Let's summarize them. Extrude, alias EXT. The command creates a surface applying with extrusion height with the object, linear object, with the closed linear object mode with the option set with the surface. Revolve, alias REV. Command creates a surface rotating, opening linear object, closed linear object mode with the option with the set with the surface around with the axis. Sweep. The command creates a surface extruding in open section or closed section mode. The option is set with the surface along the path. Loft. The command creates the surface selection to a more open linear cross section, cross linear cross selections. Mode option set is a surface. So you have your extrude, revolve, sweep, and then loft. And these are different drawings as how they did these. When applying these commands, surface creation toolbar ribbon, surface panel with the mode apply option is already set to surface. These commands also generate success. Surfaces applied to the edge of solid surface selected by pressing the control key. Surfaces associated variable to control the surface to maintain association original linear object. If the value is 0, the association is not maintained. If the value is 1, the default association is maintained. Variable can be directly manipulated on the ribbon. Two other commands presented in Chapter 5, 3D primitive conversion, also allow creating surfaces. Plane surface. The command creates the plane or surface defined with the two opposite of the corner determined by one or more existing objects. When selecting lines, arcs, circles, ellipses, 2D polyline, 3D planar polylines, planar splines, and regions, and 3D faces for each closed and object that form a closed boundary and surface is created. Conto service conversion to surface. The command converts the following object surface to namely 2D open polylines, non-zero thickness lines, arcs of the non-zero thickness, regions, planar, 3D faces, 2D size objects, 3D solids, and 3D meshes. Alright, the surface network command. The surface network command always allows you to create surfaces with the two separately open linear objects that specify the boundary net into the command two directions. The command start prompting object for the first direction. Surface network, select the curve of the surface edge of the first direction. Selection, press enter to finish the first selection. Select the curves and surface edge of the first direction. Enter, select the second object. Curves and surface end of the second direction. Selection, when pressing enter, surface is created. Select the curves and surface edge in the second direction. So, that's a surface network. If the surface associated variable is 1, modifying linear object for the surface immediately adjust the selection set. We can include surface solid edges. Creating from the other surfaces several commands with the present allow for the create surfaces of the existing surface bulge continuity and options of the frequently used in creating and adjusting surface continuity and bulge. To import surface properties for the continuity and bulge, these properties can be controlled by creating surface with the option for the grips and layer with the grips for the property palette. Continuity density with the transition between surface. The Autocad allows 3 possibilities. G0, the just position consistent edges between the two surfaces with the crease. G1, the position tendency that is smooth with the transition OC between the surfaces, but also have sudden change in curvature. And G2, the position tendency curvature of the two surfaces share the same curvature and similar radius of the transition. So you have G1, your position with the coincident edges of the two surfaces. With G1, the position tendency, smooth transition, no cease between surfaces that have sudden changes in curvature. And G2, the position tendency curvature, two surfaces share the same curvature and similar radius at transition. Bulge controls and surface curvature at transition adds a value between 0 and 1. Shows bulge 0, 0.5, bulge 0.8. Alright, surface blend command. The surface blend command always creates surface connection with the two existing surfaces. The surface jump is just prompt with the selection 2 set edges from the surface connects allow with the continuing showing continuity and bulge. Surface blend information displayed with the default continuity bulge values. Continuity G1 tangent bulge magnitude 0.5. Command prompts edge selection first surface finish by the pressing enter for the chain option allowed with selecting all connected edges by selecting only selected first surface edge of the blend or chain selection surface edge of the blend or chain enter. Command prompts edges selection with the second surface finish by the entering selecting surface edge of the blend of the chain selection selected surface edge of the blend enter. We press the accept the surface apply with the option for the control continuity or bulge values. Press enter to accept the blend surface continuity, bulge, magnitude, enter. Alright, that created a rim. Not sure if I understood it, but I was kind of distracted. Alright, the surface patch command, no alias, creates a surface that closes the hole and opening by default command prompts for selection edges that has limited opening command surface patch. Information is displayed with the default continuity bulge values, continuity G0, position bulge, magnitude 0.5. Command prompts edges selection first surface finish by pressing enter. Chain option allows selecting all connected edges by selecting only one, and the curves options allows the selecting linear entities. Selecting surface edges to patches, chains, and curves in selection. Select surface edges to patch, chains, and curves enter. When you press enter, accept the surface apply with the control continuity bulge value of the guides options allow selecting guidelines that mold the surface by printing enter to patch the surface continuity bulge magnitude guides enter. So shows the surface extended command as in square, and then is so this would be your surface patch when using the extrusion command. Surface extrusion command, no alias creates extend. No alias creates surfaces extending surfaces from selected edges by default command prompts for edge selection distance. Surface extended. Information displayed with the default values. Mode option. Mode extend. Creation appended. When select one more edge of the surface will extend. Surface edge of the extend. Selection. Surface edges to the end. Extend to enter. We specify the exact extension, distance, expression, option allow the entering mathematical expression. Modes options include possibly stretching the stretch of the surface stretch for the inside instead of extending, merging it into existing surfaces instead of creating new one appended. Specifying extended disk expression modes value. It's a surface expression modes. Alright, surface to offset command, surface to offset command, no alias create surface parallel to selected surface. By default, we select surface to specify distance, information default, command, surface offset, information default with connect option, connect adjacent edges, no, command prompts, surface selection, surface to the region of the offset selection, surface over the region to offset, enter. Oh. Small arrows normal to surface display with indicating offset of the direction by what default with the need to specify the distance. Flip direction option allows you to invert direction. Both sides of the option apply with the offset belt direction. The solid option creates a solid corresponding with the volume between the surfaces similar to the selecting command application. The connection option also connects the offset surface original surfaces are connected. Specify offset the distance, flip direction, both sides, solid connection, expression, 0.010 value. Shit, that offsets, that specifies the offset. Unlike surface creation command, surface created with the command, maintain layers, UV, iso lines original surface instead of the current layer. Surface fillet. Command, surface fillet command, no alias creates fillet surfaces between the two existing surfaces, fillet radius for the dust for the grip and an option. Command surface fillet information default values commanding options radius 0 60 trim surface yes. The command prompts you select the first surface and then the second surface. Select surface the region fillet with the radius or trim of the surface selection. Select first region fillet or radius or trim surface selection. Preview surface display with the grip of the controlling fillet radius of the option allowing to define the value of the radius strip surface of the option trims. Extend that original surfaces to meet the fillet surface. Please enter the accept the fillet surface the radius trim surface enters. Editing surfaces. Frequently we need to the trim surface related to the name of the project geometry command. Chapter 7 editing solid surfaces. If the surface auto trim variable has a value of 1, the command beside the project linear object also cuts surfaces and policies now refer to the command specific to that operation. Alright, surface trim command. The surface trim command no alias cuts surface with the other surface of the linear object for the regions by default with the command prompt surface the region for the trim. The trimming geometry for the side will be trimmed. The trim surface can be restored through the next command. Surface trim. Information detail values command option extended surface yes projection automatic. The command prompt the surface region to be trimmed extended option with the control of the intersecting object can be extended to the boundary definition most real intersection projection direction defines how inner trimming geometry is projected on surface with the trim and automatic view user coordinate system or none. Selecting surface region with trim extend projection direction selection surface region with the trim extension projection direction enter. Command prompts for object surface the region linear object for the defined trimming boundary selecting current cave surface the region selection cutting curved surface in the regions enter the when specifying the point area side to be trimmed with the prompt is repeated until the enter key is pressed. Undo option undoes last trim select the trim and undo and trim enter. Alright, so it says the surface trim command. No alias restores parts of the trim surface. It is only prompts of the selection edge resolving the trim operation. Surface area. Surface opens options allows restoring all trim parts of the selected surface. Command surface trim and select the edge surface to untrim surface. Select surface to untrim surface untrim command. Alright, exercise 12.1. The 2D simple drawing, we're going to model build the surface with the following steps. Open drawing 3D 1201. Drawing the layers already created. Activate 3D wall layers extruded with the hexagon and 6 unit surface with the mode option to the surface. Applying surface creation toolbar or surface tab extrude with the two lines by U3 units on create inner surface with a surface offset command. Select the hexagonal surface change with the flip direction option, specifying offset distance to 12 units. When applying surface fillet radius for the 4 units to cover between the two straight surfaces, activate X-ray visual style. Model should look like our next diagram. Activate 3D roofs, applying the surface blend command, and specify the chain option, select edge of the outer surface. Again, with the chain option, select edge and inner surface, and press enter to accept the blended surface. Cut the parts of the straight surface to the inside of the outer surface. The surface trim command that should be applied. Select both straight surfaces, press enter to select outer surfaces. And cutting surface finally mark on the parts of the straight surface that will be cut. Create the roof of the entrance of the building. We need to extra surface. Draw a line between the two endpoints of the straight surface and extrude it with the -1. Now apply a surface patch command. Select all edges that form the closed loop and conform it to a flat patch surface. New, delete a small extruded surface and then firmly trim the outer surface with the surface trim command. Selecting the outer surface to cutting surfaces, we select straight surfaces. Entrances for roof, specify the area to be trimmed. Freeze the second 2D layer. Save the drawing with the A3D 1201 final drawing. And it shows the picture. Create solids from surfaces. The next command does not create edit inner surfaces, but is closely associated. Surface sculpture command. Surface sculpt command, no alias, creates a solid closed volume delimited surface regions mesh of the existing solids. Surfaces and regions used in this creation are deleted and solids are united with the resulting solids. Surface must be G0, that is no tendencies between them. Command surface sculpt. Information about smooth mesh converter variable used in meshes are included. Mesh versions to set smoother and optimize. These command only prompt surface solid regions meshes that completely enclose a volume. Surface solid sculpt within the solid and selection surface solid sculpt into the solid. Enter, and it shows these meshed into one. Smooth mesh converter variable control frame smoothness when converting meshes presented later in this chapter. Solid from surfaces. Exercise 12.2. This let's apply with the command create solid for the model created with the exercise 12.1. Open the drawing A3D 12.02. The have the enclosed volume of the model must be capped below. So we have the create with the plane surface including all model base. Not is it only applying solid surface or sculpt command and selecting all the objects, but the solid is created and all surfaces are deleted. Save the drawing name A3D 12.02 final drawing. No, this model would continue to model apply the shell, solid edit command, making openings from doors and windows. Non-uniform, rational, blended spines. Surface based on the spines are mainly the free-form surfaces touched for those automotive industry for the two process for creating the non-uniform rational blended surface spine surfaces. Several commands to edit them, which are presented next. Bring down uniform rational blended spine surfaces of the create non-uniform rational blended spine surfaces of the previously specify the value 1 for surface modeling mode. System variable applying surface creation commands and or converting existing object with the convert to non-uniform rational blended spline command. Alright, the surface modeling mode variable that will create surface modeling mode variable to control the non-uniform rational blended splines or procedural surfaces that are created. 0 with the value of procedural surface created with the creating surface. 1 with this value of the national uniform or non-uniform rational blended surface created with the creating surface. It is applied with the all surface creation command with the exemption of the plane surface. Variable is not saved and the default is set at 0. The convertible non-uniform rational blended surface blended spline command and convertible to non-uniform rational blended spline command. No alias. Also use the convert procedural surface to the solve with the non-uniform rational blended spline surface to the not optional with the project object selection. Command select object to convert selection non-procedural surface solve with non-uniform rational blended surfaces. Note, national uniform rational blended surfaces cannot be converted with the procedural surfaces that are solids. Each solid face is converted into a separate surface. Editing non-uniform rational blended spline surfaces of the bicycle. There are two ways of editing non-uniform rational blended surfaces with applying 3D edit bar command or editing control vertices that can be shown dragged to a new position, thus modeling of the surface. Vertices can be added or removed at last command, allowing the rebuilding of the surface. 3D edit bar command. The 3D edit bar command allows you to modify non-uniform rational blended spline surfaces and splines by moving points, changing direction, magnitude at all specific points. At specific points beside the command line. Command line is available only on the ribbon surface tab at the end of the command star of the prompting of the selection of the non-uniform rational blended spline surface and spline surface or spline command. 3D edit. Select national uniform rational blended surfaces or curved to edit selection. This prompt for the point of surface display with the two particular red lines. Select the point with the non-uniform rational blended spline surface point. 3D move gizmo is displayed with 3 grips and explain that to next. Pressing enter ends the command. The base option allows you to select a different point on the surface, and the displacement option allows you to find a new base point by the projection coordinates on the surface. Select the grip on the edge of the bar on the base point displacement, undo selection, and or undo or exit or X selection or enter. There are 3 grips associated with the gizmo allowing shape of the surface. The square grip moves the square surface along its tangent accessed by the right click button menu. Triangle grip, this moves the choosing to move in line with the tangent. And tangent arrow grip, this modifies the tangent magnitude. So if you can figure that out. Alright, your CVS show command. CVS show, no LS displaying control point selected non-uniform rational blended surfaces, spline surfaces or splines is prompt for the selection. The continuous variable show non-uniform rational blended surfaces, spline surfaces, the curve of the display with the control vertices selection. Constant variable hide command. The constant variable hide command, no alias, turns off the control points visualization for the national non-uniform rational blended spline surfaces and splines prompts for nothing. Constant vertex added command. The constant added command now allows you to add controls to the UV direction of the direction over the surface of the spline with common parameters for the selection of non-uniform rational blended spline surfaces and spline. CV add selects the non-uniform rational blended surface and curve to add control vertices selection. By default, the specified add points add the row of the control vertices U direction of the command and the direction option allow with the changing in the other direction. Insert nodes option allow with the inserting nodes of the surface instead of the control vertices. Adding control vertices in the U direction floating point on the surface. Insert nodes in direction. Adding control vertices in V direction. Selecting a point surface. Insert the nodes in direction and point. Adding vertices in the U direction. Adding vertices in the V direction. Constant variable remove vertice. Constant vertex will remove command LS and remove the control vertices. The command prompt for the selection of non-uniform rational blended spline surface or spline. CV remove selects non-uniform rational blended surfaces of the curve to remove the control vertices and selection. Existing rows of control vertices are displayed in order to select one that will be removed. The direction option allows you to change in either direction. Remove control vertices in the U direction. Select the point surface in direction and point. Constant vertices rebuild command. Constant vertices rebuild no alias allows rebuilding non-uniform rational building spline surfaces and splines. The non-uniform rational blended splines surfaces and curvatures have too many vertices. We need to increase the degrees and degree of the command to apply with the command prompts for the selection. Surface spline to display with the dialog box. Continuous constant variable. Rebuild, select non-uniform rational blended surfaces with the curve to rebuild selection. Rebuild surface the constant various count U direction, V direction, degrees in U direction, V direction. Delete original geometry, retrim previously trimmed surface, maximum deviation, preview, OK, cancel, help. Alright, this box has the following options. Control vertice count. The option we control the number of the control of the U and V direction degrees. And the option we control the surface of the U and V direction. The option deleting original geometry does not maintain original surface with sorting. The command the original surface is trim, retrim, previously trimmed surface. The option maintains the trim on the new surface. Exercise 12.3. We're going to the non-uniform rational blended spline surfaces and stimulate the certain terrain. Start new drawing. Create a circle with 40 unit radius. A layer called surface colors of choice should be created with the activated with the plane surface object option with the plane round surface is created. Plane converse the non-uniform rational blended splines command surface is transformed in non-uniform rational blended spline surface. Display control points apply with a constant variable show command. Select the surface if there's only 4 control points over the corner of the bounding rectangle. Constant variable to rebuild commands all allows you to increase the control points in the degree. Define 6 control vertices in each direction. Now at ease the model surface the polar and ortho turned on to the move the control points up and down. Pick control points is better to use the second degree wave frame visual style. Save the drawing with the name A3D1203 final drawing. Alright, meshes. Meshes are 3D objects that simulate with an organic model of the mesh that represent planar face with enclosed the object called the tessellation. Meshes shall include the version 2010. Additional commands added in version 2011. The normal workflow mesh is roughly creating the model but then smoothing it out. There are 3 possibilities of creating meshes. Primitives from linear object by conversion. Several commands are available to edit smooth meshes. Access to the commands with the mesh panel with the drawing model menu bars and smooth mesh toolbar. Fuck. Creating primitive meshes. There one command create with the primitive meshes, another specify the different default parameters of these meshes. The mesh command in OLS is create the mesh for the 6 basic geometric geometric shape. The command start with the display with the current smoothness level the prompts from and the type of the shape. Mesh current smoothness level is set to 0 with the enter the option box, cone, cylinder, pyramid, shape, wedge, torus, or settings. Alright, with the wedge option and show the option of the command are similar primitive solids. Box the option creates a mesh for the box for the default prompt for the first for the corner, for the opposite corner for the height of the cone operates. Create for the mesh for the cone default for the prompt for the center of the base of the base radius and the height. Someone there creates the mesh for the cylinder by default and the prompts for the center of the base radius and the height. Pyramid option creates the mesh for the pyramid default prompts from the center of the base radius circumscribed square and height. Sphere for the option creates the mesh for the sphere by default of the prompt for the center and radius. Wedge option creates a mesh with a wedge of the box for the cut and diagonal with the default prompt for the first corner of the opposite corner and the height. Sphere for the option creates the mesh for the torus of the default of the prompts of the center radius for the torus and the radius of the tube. Shifting the option allowed with the defining smoothness level, the tessellation number of the planar face of each of the direction also set with the next command. Smoothness level around the edge of the view of the creator. Smoother object if acceptable the value 0 not smooth and 4 smoothest. Alright, smoothness level can be defined by the setting object at any time with the properties palette. With the smooth primitive option command, smooth primitive option, no alias control of the number of the default tessellation. Creating primitive mesh of the tessellation can be defined before the object creation. It cannot be modified later. Shows mesh and translation, tessellation, division, axis height, and base for a cone, preview, smoothness level, and preview upgrade. The command display with the dialog box, the mesh for 7, the primitive mesh for the creative with the option, control of the default tessellation division, each of the direction, preview of the area, display with the mesh primitive, the control of the tessellation values, also aspect of the qualifying smoothness level later, preview update with the help of the option for the review can be automatic when pressing update button. Creating meshes from the linear object. There are 4 commands with exactly with the Autocad with a long time with the prior with the version 2010. With these commands created with the polyface mesh with the base on the 3D face with the end of the version of the mesh type variable control of the type of the object is created when the applying with the next of the command with the value 1 default with created mesh within value 0. Create the poly mesh as an older version of the 4 command created mesh of the existing linear object with the mesh density. With the first direction is control the surface tablet 1 variable. The mesh density in the second direction is controlled. The surface tab 2 variable. These values must be set before creating these meshes. Alright, the rule surf command. The rule surface creates a mesh between 2 curves or 1 curve and 1 point. This is not possible to generate mesh between the closed curve and an open one. The command just displays the current value of the surface tab variable prime selection of the first curve and the second one. So you have the rule surface current wireframe density of the 120, so with the dividing curve selection, and the second dividing curve selection. No open curves must be selected the same side as to avoid creating cross meshes. Tabular shift the command with the tabular discriminator creating a mesh for the curve of the open close and a correction waiver vector of the command just display with the current value with the shift of the tab variable prompts and selection of the curve of the selection of the direction vector. Command tab serve the current wireframe serve the tab 120 object path curve selection object direction vector selection. Rev serve with command. Rev serve with command. No alias creates a revolution mesh for the curve that defined with a half cross section. Line polyline defined with the action for the revolution over the initial angle with the include with the angle of the command serve of the point. Displays current values of the serve of the tab serve of the tab 2, 1 and 2 variables problem with the selection with a 1/2 selection curve. Command rev serve with the current rates wireframe and serve with the tab 120 and serve with the tab 2 select the object of revolve selection. Object defined with the axis revolution is requested. You need to select an existing line or polyline last axis to define the endpoint. Select the object with the defined axis of the revolution selection. Find initial angle with the relative to the selection position. Specify the start angle 0. Enter the value. Specify the defined including angle. The default creates a full revolution. Specify the included angles. Enter positive counterclockwise, negative clockwise. Enter value. Surface tab variable control mesh the density along revolution. Surface tab 2 variable control mesh density along curved parts of the original section and straight. Parts have no division. Alright, edge surface the command now alias creates the mesh from the 4 linear objects that define with the closed boundary of the command start with the display with the current value of the tab 1, serve with the tab 2 variable and prompt with the selection 4 curves of the coincident endpoints any order. Command edge serve the current wireframe, serve the tab 1, serve the tab 2, 6, object 1 through serve the edge 1, 2, 3, 4 object selection. Serve the variable applied along the first selected linear object. Creating mesh of the convertible object, the command and converted for the object of the mesh with another command to control the conversion parameters. And mesh smooth and convert to mesh commands. Mesh smooth command also alias smooth allows converting solid surfaces polyface to mesh 3D face region close polylines into meshes. In version 2011 the conversion to mesh command was introduced, but it's like an alias of the mesh smooth command. The conversion is made according to sets and is predefined in the next command. The command made a display with the information box alerting better results with primitive solves only prompts for option and selection. Command mesh smooth select object convert selection. Alright, mesh option command. Mesh option command no alias control the default setting with the converting object for the mesh. Following areas are available. Select object to tessellate to the bottoms allows you to select objects to convert them when them for the default setting. The option can replace mesh smooth command. Mesh type of tolerance, mesh type of the smooth optimization defined by the command mostly quads, which is mainly creating 4-side face triangles, which mainly create with 3-side face. The following are options available to mesh type and tolerance areas. Mesh distance for original face. The options specify the maximum possible distance for the original to the mesh. Maximum angle between the new face. The options specify the maximum angle between the normal and continuous faces. Maximum aspect ratio for new faces, and the options specify the width, height, and ratio of the new faces. Maximum edge length for the new face. For the options specify the maximum length of the face edges. Mesh primitive solids and converting solid primitive. The option allowed with the apply with the predefined tessellation. Mesh primitive with the button display with the mesh primitive option command box. The mesh smooth mesh after tessellation will help with the help of this option. After conversion, new mesh can be automatically smooth within chosen smoothness level. Select object to operate mesh tessellation option. Select option to oscillate new object mesh type tolerance mesh type. Max distance original face angle between the new face aspect ratio of the new face edge length of the new face. Meshing primitive solids operation representing 3D primitive solids mesh primitives. Smooth after tessellation apply smooth after tessellation level. Edit meshing. Some commands are exclusive of the editing mesh, and however we select mesh of the face selected by holding the control key with applying the normal editing commands such as the move, the rotate, and the scale. Also, we may apply specific 3D editing commands such as 3D move, 3D rotate, 3D scale. When editing commands to avoid wrong selections, it's possible to filter which mesh sub-objects can be selected. Sub-object selection mode variable filters for the type of the sub-objects can be selected, which is 0 for the null filter, 1 for any vertex, 2 for edges, and 3 for only faces. Mesh extrude command. The mesh extrude command, no alias, allows extruding selected faces by default with the command prompt with the faces selection and extrusion height. Command mesh extrude. Information about default setting concerning the extrusion conversion consecutive faces of the displayed. Adjacent extruded faces to set the joint. Command prompt selection of the faces. These must be selected one by one. Select mesh faces to include extrude or setting. Selection set mesh face to extrude or setting. Enter. By default, we specify the height and extrusion direction path, taper angle, and then 0.4 is the default value. The optional commands are setting option control the consecutive faces of the shape connected with the smoothing, not being parallel joined yes or being parallel joining no. Direction similar to extruded command. The option allows you to specify the height of the direction extrusion path. Similar to the extruded command, this option allows you to select a path and extrude selected faces along the path. Taper angle is singular extruded command. This option allows you to define the taper angle for the extrusion. Alright, note faces may be selected by one or more of the means, but then it's not easily to manipulate many faces. Alright, mesh cap. Mesh cap command allows you to create faces that connect edges and then close gap. The command prompts edge selection mesh cap. Selecting connect mesh edge to create the new mesh faces. Instead of the edge selection, the chain option allows you to select one edge and all continuous edges are selected. Select edge or chain. If you chain the option, it will specify what the command tries to close the loop defined by all edges. The edges return the selection of the individual edges. Select the edge of the chain. Options or edges. Options try to change chain closed loop. Yes. Pressing enter the command of the edges can be used to select more of the edges of the chain. Or options the edges. Enter smooth. And mesh smooth or more command. Mesh smooth more. Alias more command. Increase the smoothness of the second mesh one level. If it only prompts the mesh's selection. Note, a more efficient way to modify smoothness level is applying properties palette. If the command is applied with the objects that are not meshed, they are not meshed, but they can be converted and prompt the conversion for information. Mesh smoothness command. The mesh smoothness command alias less decrease the smoothness of the selected mesh one level and only prompts the selection of the mesh. Mesh crease command. The mesh crease command alias crease allows you to define and sharpen and increase the edges with not effectively increase the smoothness level. The command prompt the mesh object option sub-object selection. Mesh crease, mesh object for the crease selection, mesh object the crease. We define maximum smoothness level for which crease will not be maintained by default. So always maintaining crease despite the smoothness level. Specify crease value always or always enter. Properties palettes allows you to modify crease to selected sub-objects. Mesh uncrease command. Mesh uncrease command. Alias uncrease allows you to remove the crease edges defined in the previous mode. Command. The command just prompts for crease to be removed. Mesh uncrease to select crease to be removed. Select the crease to remove the enter, and then mesh refine command. This command also refine also subdivided selected surface of the rules mesh have then select smoothest level of one. Number of the subdivision depends on smoothest level. Command prompt of the meshes or face selection mesh front refine. Select mesh object face object the refine selection mesh object face subject object the refine enter. And then mesh merge command, message command, no alias join contiguous face into one. The command just prompts the face selection. Mesh merge, select adjacent mesh faces to merge and selection. Select adjacent mesh faces to merge and enter. Mesh collapse command. Mesh collapse command, no alias merge vertices for the selected face of the edge of the command. Just prompt the selection one mesh face and the mesh edge. Mesh collapse and mesh face for the edge of the collapse and selection. And, it wasn't. Mesh split command, always split, always dividing mesh face in two faces for the command prompt of the face selection of the two cutting vertices on edge. Command mesh split on the mesh face for the split selection. Passing over the edge of a small knife symbol is added with the cursor of the vertex option limited to point selection of the vertices. Specify the first split point on the face edge vertex split mesh. Specify the second split on the face edge vertex point. Mesh split command to change the edges between the two continuous triangular face of the command prompt with the selection first and the second. Triangular mesh for the continue of the first one. The mesh spin. First triangular mesh face for the spin selection. Selecting adjacent triangular mesh face to spin selection. Alright, poly meshes. Polyface meshes were first in 3D Autocad. 3's meshes are based on the 3D faces defined the 3 to 4 vertices. Only 3D faces command is important to introduce to the used in Chapter 5 for 3D primitive conversion. Polyface meshes still have the one advantage related to the other surface meshes. Vertices can be stretched easily, creating polyface meshes. Besides important 3D face commands, some of the other available, but mainly use the programming. None of these commands have icons, mesh type, variable to value, 0, rule, serve the tab, serve the reverse, serve the edge, serve the commands, which were presented before in creating polyface meshes. The result of the exploding polyface meshes are 3D faces. These commands you have no undo option. An error specifying a vertex requires command cancellation, pop, and posterior modification. 3D face command alias at 3F creates a face defined in 3 to 4 vertices. Single command application allows the creating of several contingency faces. 3D face. The command prompt sequences points defined in clockwise, counterclockwise direction. Invisible option allows turning invisible points for the next edge. Second, first, second, third, fourth, and specified third. Point 1, point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5, point 6, point, and so on. And 3D mesh command. 3D mesh command no else creates a polyface mesh specifying how many of the vertex exist in the both direction. Each of the vertex coordinate command is mainly used for the programming mesh of the first list of the point coordinates of the 3D mesh that define the number of the vertex in the first direction, interside of the mesh in the M direction 2. We define the number of the vertex in the second direction, interside of the mesh for the number of direction 2, and direction 4. Finally, we define each of the vertex location, special location vertexes, and then the P-face command. The P-face command no alias creates a polyface mesh composed of the biface that can have more than 4 edges of the command. Start with the prompting by the location of all of the vertices. The prompt of the vertices have along with the face 1, face 2, and so on. The spacing of the new face they have a different color layer. 3D command allows you to create the polyface mesh with the corresponding to basic volume shape of such as box, wedges, pyramids, meshes, forests, cones, spheres, and hemispheres. Note the command that defined in AutoLISP programs called the 3D.LSP since the version 2012 of the program is not included, but is easy to find in the previous version or over the internet and loaded into AutoCAD. Editing polyface meshes. The stretch command is greater the tool to modify the polymesh face mesh. It's easy selecting vertices of the cross mode of the moving them to the new position. P-edit command when selecting polyface meshes obtained with the 3D mesh, 3D rule surface, tabular surface, revision surface, and edge surface commands have specific option. Edit vertices, all editing vertexes basically by selecting ones, moving it each of the stretch command, smoothing surface, move the polyface mesh, de-smooth, cancel the effect of the smoothing operation, M close, M open, close the open mesh for the M direction, N close and N open, close the open mesh in the N direction, and that surface analysis. There are 3 commands since version 2011 that perform surface analysis and other activity adjust option. These analyses use them needed to be checked continuity curvature draft angles like the molded industry. The commands cannot be used with the 2D wireframe visual style are only available on the ribbon surface panel. Type of analysis. Command AutoCAD considers 3 types of analysis which can be applied when surfaces. The solid zebra analysis. Surfaces analyze about their continuing projection parallel black and white stripes of that onto the model default. The surface beneath the stripes allowing analyzing curvature and tangent. Curvature analysis. Surfaces are analyzed by about their curvature with a color gradient draft analysis. Surfaces are analyzed by how easy they would be separated from the mold. Analyzing zebra. Analyzing zebra command prompt zebra or alias zebra prompts the selection of solid surfaces. The display of the stripes on surfaces. On surfaces, these stripes allow you to detect non-tendencies and curvature changes. Analyzing curvature command. Analyzing curvature command. No alias prompt of the selection of solids with the surface display of the color gradient. The Gaussian curvature is a positive the convex M and the color is green. If negative the concave, the color is blue. Analyze curvature. Select the solid surface. Analyzing turn on and off. Analyzing draft command. Analyzing draft command and no alias prompt the selection of solids with the surface display with the color gradient. The color gradient elevates how easy to will to be the separated part of the mold. Analyzing draft. Selecting solid surface by analyzing turn on and off section, original, zebra, curvature, and draft, analyzing option command, option analysis type of the command display with the dialog box, 3 tabs and all possible to select the object, analyzing clear, analyzing zebra tab controls all options related to zebra analysis, namely stripe, the angle, the type of between the cylindrical, shape, stripe size, and color, curvature of the tab, control of the all options related to curvature analysis, namely display style and color, range, draft angle of the tab, control of the color range of the draft angle analysis. And then show the angle analysis options. Summary: besides molding solids from the sum of the projects on the surface that can be used over the chapter, include all the commands related to surface mesh for the object that do not have a thickness. We start with identifying all the categories developed in chapter. Beside extruding involves sweep and loft command presented in chapter 4, creating solid surface, second 2D, and extruding is converting software command of the presented in chapter 5, the 3D primitive conversion. Several other procedural surface commands are available, which are as follows: surface network, surface blend, surface pad, surface extend, surface offset, surface fillet. To edit procedural surface commands such as surface trim, which is use the cut the surface the other surface the linear object region, surface the untrim, which is use the restore of the trim surface the presenting category, surface sculpt command include allowing to create a solid with a closed volume, non-uniform rational blended spline surface is commonly used with the free-form molding can be created by the conversion to non-uniform rational blended splines command. Any surface creation method to have surface modeling mode system variable of 1. These several commandments added with non-uniform rational blended surface spline surfaces such as the 3D edit bar, how shall move the points from the change of the direction, magnitude, see constant variable show and constant variable hide, which are used to turn on and off control point visualization, constant variable add, constant variable remove, which are used to add and remove control points, and constant variable rebuild will use the recalculated surface. Mesh in 3D object can simulate smooth organic models, which can be created in 3 ways. The mesh command, which have the options defined with the mesh primitive options, command rule, surface tab, surface edge, surface commands, which are used to create existing object with the linear object mesh smooth conversion to mesh, and command used the converting existing object with conversion option set with the mesh option command. These several commands edit the meshes, which are as follows: mesh extrude, the commands use the extrude the selected face, mesh cap, the commands create the face with the connect the edge of that, close the gap, mesh smoother more or less, the commands the increase the decrease smooth left, the mesh crease or uncrease commands used to define with the remove the crease to edges, mesh refine commands use subdivide selected faces or whole meshes, mesh merge command use to join continuous face into one, mesh collapse the command is used to merge vertices, mesh splint with the command is used to divide mesh face to the mesh spin, command is used to rotate edge with between 2 continuous triangular faces, polyface meshes. Are based on 3D face, but define 3 to 4 vertices, and wherever the first 3D object Autocad with the create the polyface with the each command with the such with 3D face, you have to create the face to define 3 to 4 vertices 3D mesh used mainly for the program and creating the polyface mesh for the specifying how many vertices except the both direction of each vertex coordinate P face, which is used to create polyface mesh composed of the face that can have more than 4 edges within 3D, which is used to create polyface meshes corresponding basic volume shape. The stretch command allows you to move the vertexes and polyface meshes. Finally, the 4 commands were presented related to the surface analysis, namely analyze zebra, which is used to analyze surface about the continuity, analyze surface curvature, which is used to analyze surface about this curvature, analyzing draft, which is used to analyze surface and how easy would they be separated from the mold, analyzing analyst options used to control the options of all analyst types. In Appendix A. Okay, that will cut the tape, and that's the book.